this is kind of, I effing hate you.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to just remind you, you guys know the word row, right? Like row your boat.
Yeah.
But it also has this other meaning. It's like the British, like English, but British English, like from London, slang. Whatever you want to do. Okay, so row, like row your boat, in British slang, it actually means a fight. So if I said we had a row, that's the same as saying we had a fight. You're gonna want to know that when we get later into the poem.
But what's the boat?
What?
The one to say row your boat, like it hit people's boats?
No, the word row, remember how we've talked about how words have multiple meanings?
Yeah.
Okay, so the word row, R-O-W, it's right down here, hours after our latest row. Okay, so somebody in my first period was like, why were they rowing? Were they in a boat? And I was like, no, that means fight. So I'm like letting you know now that when it says hours after our latest row, it means hours after our latest fight. They're not in a boat.
But why does it boat?
What? Because if in American English, the word row generally means like you're in a boat with a paddle.
Yeah.
But this is British English. You with me?
No.
Okay. Can I ask you to kind of just go with it and enjoy the poem? Because I think you're gonna like it. It's kind of funny. And kind of awesome, I think. Hate Poem by Julie Sheehan. Are we ready?
Yes.
Hate Poem by Julie Sheehan. I hate you, truly, truly I do. Everything about me hates everything about you. The flick of my wrist hates you. The way I hold my pencil hates you. The sound made by my tiniest bones, were they trapped in the jaws of a moray eel, hates you. Each corpuscle singing in its capillary hates you. Look out! I hate you. The blue-green jewel of Sockland I'm digging from under my third toenail, left foot, hates you. The history of this keychain hates you. My sigh in the background as you explain relational databases hates you. The goldfish of my genius hates you. My aorta hates you. Also my ancestors. A closed window is both a closed window and an obvious symbol of how I hate you. My voice, curt as a hair shirt, hate. My hesitation when you invite me for a drive, hate. My pleasant good morning, hate. You know how when I'm sleepy, I nuzzle my head under your arm? Hate. The whites of my target eyes articulate hate. My wit practices it. My breasts relaxing in their holster from morning to night hate you. Layers of hate, a parfait. Hours after our last row, brandishing the sharp glee of hate, I dissect you cell by cell so that I might hate each one individually and at leisure. My lungs, duplicitous twins, expand with the utter validity of my hate, which can never have enough of you, breathlessly, like two idealists in a broken submarine. good one, right? We have a lot to say. If you are finished, you can take out your prep and maybe glance over the little quarter sheet that I just handed you. If you are not yet finished, that's okay. Take your time. I know, your favorite. It's like, giant quarter sheet. Okay, now do you understand row?
I don't. I understand how rowing is funny, but why does the boat get empty?
It doesn't matter.
The boat process.
Granted, explain.
You're making. It basically means fight back to get your boat.
So you're not gonna do that. All right. So, how are we doing?
Imagine the boat doesn't even exist at this point.
Good today? Are we feeling okay? Okay. Hey, guess who decided to stay with us instead of going to softball? Dedication. Are we excited? Yes. Okay, I know. Love. So, we know what we're doing today. This is our last Socratic circle for Lord of the Flies. Not for the year, don't worry. For Lord of the Flies. You're going to use your preparation today to ask and answer questions. And those questions are going to be grounded, as always, in what? Text evidence. Thank you. So, before we start, yeah, you can get out your preparation, but before we start, here's what I want you to do with your quarter sheet. You have the quarter sheet. I promised you I would find it, and I did. You have that quarter sheet from last time. You have your own notes and self-reflection, and then you have my notes and your grade. So given how it went last time for you, your notes, your self-reflection, the grade I gave you, here's what I'd like you to do on today's quarter sheet. I want you to draw a little line across the top. You're going to put your name. But then I also want you to put goal. And you're going to write yourself a little goal along the top. And then you're going to take that quarter sheet with you. Are you guys okay to use the same groups we did last time?
Yeah, we could like mix it up a bit.
Okay.
What?
So you hate your group?
We'll mix it up a little bit.
No, we can always try new people.
New people? But there's not that many people in here.
Sorting hats.
Sorry.
I'll tell you what, this time we'll do the same, next time we'll switch it up. Okay? Good. So when you're ready, let's do the kind of the same. Actually, Mac, that means you're going to need to move, no worries. So let's do 1, and then let's do kind of 2. As soon as you're done with your goal. And you guys know what to do, right?
Yeah, talk.
Okay, so just go for it.
We don't even have to move.
No, you do. You need to make the little table areas.
Wait. Okay, people, we are commencing the Socratic symbol.
Do you guys want to start with the first question? First question.
Are we gonna do like individual questions or like the topic?
And then it's gonna lead out to a topic. Number two? Number two?
I would love to be the first to answer them.
Alright. Why do you think Ralph's reaction to being saved was so
Okay.
climatic? David?
I think it was pretty anticlimactic because he was, well,
I'll explain the question. Why do you think Ralph's reaction to being saved was so
it wasn't so anticlimactic because
towards the end of the page?
at first he couldn't have really responded much because he was still frightened. Because think about it, he was running for his life.
Ralph just
They were
says,
gonna
like,
kill
oh,
him,
no.
so he wasn't really.
But like, you know, he's been saved.
Like he had
He can go
just
home now. He's not trapped on this island.
just
with
finished
kids.
experiencing
But
that.
all he's saying is
So when
follow
he saw the
something
officer,
And I think the reason
yeah,
why is
I don't know. I
because
guess he was
none
really
of these
overwhelmed at the
factors,
time.
You wouldn't actually think. I mean, yeah, like the fire was
So,
a
yeah.
symbol of hope.
What does it mean
But
by
there was always the chance that they would
anticlimactic?
never be
To
rescued.
like,
And now that he's rescued, he's
underwhelmed.
not react. He's speechless. So he's just
So
going.
can you like
Guys,
using
narrate
that
it
like
down. Like it wasn't very dramatic.
He didn't take it very seriously.
Yeah, kind of like, you know how the climax is like the peak of the story, like the most interesting part where everything like changes, like it's the most like exciting part of it, so like his reaction wasn't like how you felt, like it wasn't like,
so you thought that
So I thought like it wasn't very dramatic at the time because he was like very frightened by being chased because he was running for his life because you know they were gonna kill him.
I think like I want to connect this question to question number 20. Why the author chose to end the story the way he did, and Ralph. In the end of the story, he understands something new, and he understands that nature of people is like is pretty bad, because when the sailor comes and meets them, he says that he would have thought that a couple of British kids would have done a better job to survive instead of start a war. But in reality, the Navy man himself, he's British, and Great Britain or England, they're having a war, which show like the resemblance between the men and the boys. So I think like he's trying to say that there's grief inside of him now, because in the book on page 202 it says that Ralph looked at him. He had fleeting pictures of the strange glamour that had once invested the beaches, where the island was scorched up like a dead wood. Simon was dead, and Jack had ... He gave himself up to them. Grey sardines, spam of grief. Ralph wept for the end of innocence and darkness of man's heart. So like Ralph now understands that humans by nature is actually like really dark and evil. So I think that's why he's not really excited to see the sailor no more, because like he now understands that there's evil inside of him too.
So how does this change him as a person? If you know, now that he's going into the world, like he's going back into the world, knowing that every person is dark, how do you think that's gonna affect him? If they were to, like the author to have another chapter, like what do you think the author would include now that he has this like knowledge?
And just to clarify, you guys are saying that now they're viewing, like once they go back to the world, they're viewing people like they're all have evil inside of them.
I think that now Ralph is gonna be like he's gonna have a different perspective in life, because at first he thought that life was like organized and like he tried to make things fun at first, but like he later learns that it's not always as it seems. So
he might
hmm.
want to kill them too.
I think he's gonna be like an outcast, like Simon. Because Simon didn't think of the beast either. Like he didn't really fear the beast because he didn't have evil inside of him. And I can continue.
You did?
You can continue.
Oh, I kind of agree with Victor. Like they're gonna see like things different because like in general, like if you when you go through things, like you take experience from them, like you learn from right from wrong, and I think that since this experience is gonna affect them, they're gonna like do things differently.
Connecting to what you guys are saying on question 39, it's asking how might the boys learn from their experiences, which is basically what we're talking about. It says, how would they learn from their experiences on the island? And I wrote that the boys might change from their experience because the children would be more grateful for the things that they have, that they can get, for the little things, for the food, especially the rules that they have, or the adults that tell them what to do. Because now that they don't have the rules on the island, they kind of went out of society. They kind of did their own thing, but it went like haywire. Like everyone was killing and everyone was torturing. And then another not so positive way that they can change is by never recovering or overcoming their savagery, like wanting to kill something. Like maybe it'll stay in their nature because they got so used to it on the island, and they're either gonna have a stronger mindset or a way of being really paranoid outside of the island and never letting go of the past or ruining their future with the thought of savagery still inside them.
I agree with Carla because it's like at first they thought that they could have fun and they could do their own thing because it's like on an island there aren't really any houses, there's no adults, so they kind of just went crazy at first. But now I think, and they kind of, even though they had rules, they still took it for granted. And I think now when they go back, they're not going to take it so much as granted. Like they're going to see how thankful they are for their parents, because I feel like if they had an adult there, like they would have done better at organizing themselves. And I can connect this to question 21 where it says, what does the author try to say about the boys when they burn the island again? And I think that that's an extreme point that the author's trying to make, how no one can survive without authority for long. Like you need structure and order, but like if you don't have it, then you're gonna have like bad consequences.
So you think that being in the island was like a lesson for them, like their experience?
Yeah, in a way, I guess.
I also think that we were talking about our already based on Yaneli's chapter 13 yesterday, because she talked about Jack's depression and how being with his family after the island with his parents, that it didn't help him a lot and he just wanted to go back to the way that he used to be.
Like got a little freedom and confidence in himself to do what he wanted.
I would like to add to question 42 because
in the beginning of the book, you know how like
I
Ralph
think that
well, it was sort of like a
when
sloppy vote, but basically
Jack-
Ralph was elected chief among all the people. But Jack,
after
it
experiencing
seems
what they
like he
did,
was like
I think that
no one really voted
Jack
for him,
opened
but
his
Jack
eyes
sort of wants
when
to be
the-
a leader. But since Ralph is the
the
leader,
officer
like
came,
Ralph sort of like
I think he
threatens him
opened his eyes and
because he's more
reality hit
powerful.
him.
So like Jack tries to like be
Because
above him, even if he can't.
I feel like he wasn't in control of his actions when he was on the island, and he started crying because he realized that what he had done wasn't like himself, and he couldn't believe it. And I think if they went back to the island, and if they went back to society, they would be able to fit in. Even though they suffered, even though they went through a lot, they would be able to learn from their experiences, and it would affect them in a positive or negative way. Like, for example, they could, going back to Samantha's presentation yesterday, she was talking about how they suffered a trauma, and I think that could possibly happen to one of them.
what do you think is Jack's true identity? And like anybody could answer that. Do you think it's like that when he was an island, like a savagery, or like an actual like story, like he keeps him to himself?
I think that Jack's true identity wasn't really like, he didn't like just change into savagery. He was just kind of like thinking like, well, that's the only way I'm gonna survive here. Because on the last page, he says, I think Victor quoted this too. He said he gave himself up to them now for the first time on the island. I think what that's trying to say is like he was exhausted of having to try so hard, like of trying to like look like the tough one. I think he was just tired of that, and he realized that he got used to it now. But that wasn't his true identity at first.
I like to add on how you said that he is treated as not savagery. At first he was kind of like mean and not very nice, and later on he did lead to savagery because of his own personality before the island.
Volunteered himself to be chief, but he's not voted. He's like jealous.
I kind of disagree. I don't know. I see that he raised his size, but I kind of feel like once he was in the island, like, well, they were judging him, but like he didn't really care they judged him, so he just like was being himself, and like he just went for it. Like since when he left, he says that he doesn't want the rules, so that's what he's gonna choose. He's choosing to like not follow the rules. I mean, it could be different if like there was no parent here. They could have like if there was a pregnancy, he probably would follow the rules, but I don't know. I kind of feel like the island are out like.
I agree with Isabel, because on the difference between Jack and Roger, in the beginning Roger was like, he would throw stones at the kids, so he wouldn't like try to hit him. But after a while, the savagery within him like grew, and the attachments of society he once had became looser until they broke completely. That's when he actually had a nerve to kill Piggy with the rock. Yeah, that was on page 180, where it says Roger, with a sense of delirious abandonment, leaned on his way on the lever. So he like abandoned the ways of society and to become the who he actually is, and now he's like be molded into the person he was trained to be.
Yeah, to add on, like trying to say, I think that your surroundings kind of influence like who you are.
This actually kind of leads us into question 35. While there's like savagery, do you think it was like an inside force or outside force? And I know Jasmine, you want to answer this? So.
Yes, I think the savagery within the boys was caused mostly by an outside force. I mean, it is human nature to be savage, but like you said, it is environment and human influence. And here, Jack is a human influence. As throughout the novel, you can see him acting savage. Like, for example, in page 179, he says, "Go on, tie them." And the savages listen and does what they say, because by their own, because they followed Jack, because he was the leader of the choir. They respected him. But the environment is the island, because basically they were raised to be civilized, as Victor said about the officer when he said, "I should have thought that the pack of British boys would have been able to pull off a better show than that." That demonstrates how they were sheltered and how they basically got, they were dependent on their parents, and they were sheltered, they were civilized, followed rules, but now there was no parents, no rules. Basically everything goes downhill, and since you can't really go to a market and get food in the island, you have to hunt, which is the reason why they have Jack basically decides to become a savage.
So are you saying that like they had no choice but to resort to savagery, or could they have controlled themselves? Or did they have a choice, or did they have a choice?
They could have had a choice, and it's basically their choice if they wanted to be savage or not. I mean, they could have just ate fruit most of the time, but at the same time, you need meat.
I like to agree with Jasmine, because I think they do have a choice, because Ralph ended up like he didn't really become a savage like Jack did, and then
Roger also became a savage because I think Jack like influenced him too because he was chief of like the hunters, but Ralph like just tried to remain like with the whole society.
So do you guys think it's an outside force? Or an inside force?
I think that's kind of because it depends on your choices, but like your surroundings might affect your choices.
I agree with you.
I want to connect this question to question number 33. It says, why is the book called The Lord of the Flies? After all, The Lord of the Flies is only mentioned once.
Excuse me, please send Karina Vargas to the office. She will be leaving. Thank you.
Thanks, Liz.
And I think like William Golding named the book The Lord of the Flies because it was like the Lord of the Flies that caused the kids to turn into savages. The Lord of the Flies is not something we can see or touch. It is something within us. I believe the Lord of the Flies is the wickedness and evil within the boy's heart. Simon knew about this. He actually mentioned that it was actually only the boys freeing themselves. And that's why he was never really afraid of the beast. And he would always like walk around on the island. So he knew that it was actually only the boys freeing themselves. So since Simon didn't have the wickedness inside of him, he never turned into like a savage and was always portrayed as the weird character. Because the Lord of the Flies like basically was the cause of the whole savagery problem. And the last
Ralph is a leader and protects him, and on quote on page 91, you haven't got the conch, let him speak. Ralph is protecting Piggy's right to speak, and
I think Piggy has so much trust in Ralph because he's the wisest one. He knows the difference between Jack and Ralph, and that Ralph is a better person than Jack is. So he has more trust in Ralph instead of having trust in anybody else, because if he would have trust in Jack, Jack could betray him at any moment, but Ralph, he knows that he would stick by him and help him with everything.
I agree, because in the beginning he was like the first one to kind of meet him and stuff. Even though he like did like break the promise on Piggy, he did apologize, and he was kind of like the nicest one out of the group.
I think that Piggy had so much trust in Ralph was because Ralph was really the only one that protected him and that really stood up for him. On page 93, he says that if you give up, like when Ralph is starting to give up, he says, if you give up, what will happen to me? And then later on he says, I'm scared of you. So Piggy depends a lot on Ralph to stand up for him when he's getting bullied. So without Ralph getting authority, Jack would like torture Piggy, and so then that's without trust.
I feel like Piggy had trust in Ralph because like Piggy doesn't really know like who would be a good leader and like who would not, because like he didn't have friends on the island because he says he's been made fun of, called like fat, so it's like he doesn't really know who to trust. And like the first person to actually like talk to him, that's who he looked up to, because like no one ever talked to him before, so it's like just the first person who ever came to him is the person he trusts.
Do you have any text evidence?
Let me see.
So no?
I have to see. Yeah, can you come back to me?
Guys want to move on?
I have to ask a question, which is now that the book is like over, what do you guys think that the author's purpose was for writing this?
Question number 31.
What's the name? Then yeah.
I think the author's purpose of writing this was to show that as you like the overall theme basically is like the whole story is that once you lose your touch to society and like with humans, it releases the inner humanity within a person. I came up with this because first on page 31, if you will, it says, He raised his arm in the air. There came a pause, and a hiatus. The pig continued to scream, and the creepers to jerk, and the blade continued to flash at the end of the bony arm. The pause was only long enough for them to understand what an enormity the downstroke would be, illustrating that Jack wasn't able to kill the pig. But then, as we go on in the story, on page 71, it says, Jack transferred the knife to his left hand and smudged the blood all over his forehead, pushed down at the plastered hair, demonstrating that once he got comfortable on the island, that he started showing his inner humanity and wanting to kill.
I like how you added two different pieces of evidence. It's pretty cool.
I believe the overall theme of the story was kind of like how everything changed. How you said, like in the beginning of the book, it said downstroke, how like effective it would be, and then later on, they just killed Piggy like there was nothing. They didn't mention his death ever again. It was just like it happened. That's it. That's why I think the theme was kind of like how over time people change.
I had another theme. I like to say that the theme is about war, because like the whole reason they got to the island was because World War III, and the author wrote this. Huh?
World War I?
No, because I think it's World War III, because I'm guessing this takes place in modern time when the book was written, which is in the 50s, and World War II. Because World War II just happened, so, and it says on the back the next World War, so I think it's World War III, and I think the topic or theme is about war because like the kids are, and even though they're separated from society, they're still having a war on their island. You know, we have like Ralph's group, the people that listen to him, and then there's Jack's group, so there's war everywhere, and also there's war happening outside as well.
I think Zach is making a really nice point. I'd like to not have our discussion get bogged down in which war it is, because it really doesn't say in the text. Let's just focus on the idea of war itself. Does anyone have a response to Zach's point there? Beautifully articulated.
I feel like war is like part of what I was gonna say, but I have two themes that like connect the dots with war, where it's like you don't want to grow up too fast, like how they said, where it says there aren't any grown-ups, we shall look ourselves on page 33. So it's kind of like they had to be independent, like because there's no grown-ups, because they got lost, like it was like a random event that happened, and since there's no grown-ups, they don't know how to organize themselves good enough like to be stable and survive. So them not being organized and stable led to the war, because they get frustrated with each other and like they just get frustrated.
Do you know why they got separated into two groups?
Because they all had like different ideas, like Jack and Ralph. They always had different ideas, and they would always like go head to head with each other.
What were their different ideas?
Would you like me to help? Jack's idea was just to kill and hunt, and Ralph's idea was to lead and the fire and survive.
Do you think that it was bad that Jack just wanted to kill all the time?
Well, if all he wanted to do was kill a pig, that's all they would be doing. They wouldn't have anything else to do. They would have to build a fire to cook the pig, because they can't eat it raw because they could get a disease. But if they're just gonna kill and hunt and that's all they want to do, they can't have a fire. They can't help Ralph to help all of them get rescued soon. Sure.
I like to add a different thing, but because we're like talking about war, I like to add that pretty much we're like in our daily lives we're like pretty much fighting our own wars, because we go through our whole lives as we keep on going through our life. We go through a lot of struggles, a lot of difficult times. So it's pretty much like a war. We're like fighting our own war, like within and without.
What's your
I think come back to
yeah.
you know, since you asked the question, give it your
I agree with what Abel and Samantha, I think, was the one who said that it's kind of based more on society, because my like essay was kind of about that. It was talking about how Jack had a difficult time adapting to like the new society after being like stranded on an island, like not being handed everything. They had to get it on their own, and now that they're back home, they just get everything handed. So I think it was just kind of something about society, like telling you how like how hard it is to survive or something like that.
I like to agree with Abel. Like he was saying how civilization and how the boys eventually became more savage as they let out their true human. And I would like to say that William Golding's main theme is his purpose behind the story is to show how specifically a group of boys would react in their own civilization or society as like anything can affect them in a major way, like betrayal or fear, and how such little things can cause a collapse in society.
What do you have anything to add?
Back to what Zach and Thomas said, I feel like I agree with war, like because like how Thomas said, like they had different ideas of like having power, and how like Ralph wanted to have power to get on that for like everybody, but on page 150, Jack says, "Cool, join your tribe and have fun." He just like wants to kill
And you guys like all think that like society, like the unstable society leads to war, so we kind of need like they interact with each other, like you understand?
Yeah, so when you think about it, they're kids and they really don't know what war is.
Last word to that. And I think that was a great last word. They may not know what word is, but they know how to spell it. That's deep right there. Say thank you to your group.
Thank you.
And make sure you guys are quarter sheet, make your way back to your spot. I would like to appreciate. If you need a second quarter sheet because you want to appreciate someone else, that's great. If you want to appreciate someone who has the same name as someone else in the class, like Karina or Samantha, please indicate which Karina or Samantha you're referring to. Otherwise, no one really gets their appreciations. Let me know if you need another appreciation word. Yes, Abel. I am collecting your preparation. Almost everyone is done. If you need a stapler to staple your preparation together, don't stress. It's coming around. In our last couple of minutes, did you hack it with a stapler? That's like an old-fashioned one. It's like really, really heavy. Hey, Jess. What's up, sugar? Good news, guys. Now anything is possible. All right. I'm not really sure what this is about, this yellow sheet. This is a little present for us from Dr. Reyes. If you could hang on to it until the end of class and then put it in your bag or backpack for your mommies and daddies, dogs, grandpas, uncles, whoever's in charge of you at home. What I'd like to do to wrap up, I first want to return us back to our learning target. So what I was looking for today and what we were practicing today was this idea that we're preparing. Raise your hand if you prepared for today's Socratic seminar. Raise your hand if you prepared for today's Socratic seminar, meaning like you came up with some questions and then you answered them. Okay, good. So the idea was that we were using that preparation, not just doing it, but actually using it in the conversation to help us support our ideas with text evidence. We also were trying to ask and answer questions thoughtfully and to keep everyone involved. Show me on your fingers if you did a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. How do you think we did on these learning targets today? Show me 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Did we meet it? That's a 5. Like exceed it. We were amazing. 0. Everyone was asleep. Heads were down. We did nothing. Okay, cool. I see mostly 4s and 5s, which makes me feel like, all right, we're hitting our learning target. So beyond just the process of discussing, what did we actually learn today? Last time we did this, I had you write down the big ideas you thought you learned on a quarter sheet, but today I'm just going to ask you, what do you feel like what came out of this discussion for you? Thomas, then Vargas?
Like what I learned is, like they didn't say this directly, but some people were saying that society was part of the theme and war, but I kind of feel like society, like an unstable society can lead to war.
Interesting. So instability in society leads to war. Interesting. So then the question, like, how do you form a stable society? Right? Did anyone feel like that question was answered in the book?
I mean, it was asked, but it wasn't answered.
Huh?
Oh, I feel like that question
bunch of ideas of how it can work, but never really like an exact answer. Because I think it's just a matter of perspective and not person.
Great. Thank you. Other ideas that came out of today's conversation?
I feel like we were discussing about a bit, like more of a deeper meaning of why the author chose that to write the way he chose for the book.
What do you think that deeper meaning was?
That no matter what you go through, like in your daily life, you are gonna be faced with many challenges and obstacles.
Like Thomas said, war never changes.
Like, I brought this up, like, the idea of war, because I really never thought of that. Like, I was thinking of society at the time.
Well, war is a totally social phenomenon, right? If you don't have a society, you can't have war. Like, think about all those movies that are like apocalypse, right? And it's just like one or two people running around and everyone's just being crazy and trying to kill each other. You know what I mean? Like, well, no, that's Vietnam War. That's the Heart of Darkness. That's a whole other thing. But like, there's no war. It's just like a hand-to-hand combat between two people, right? In order to have like World War III or World War II, you have to have countries and alliances between those countries, right? People have to be organized. So maybe society causes war?
Yeah, I would like to add that Simon, like if Simon would have taken charge, the whole concept of the beast would have like been dismissed, and therefore there would have been any fear, meaning that the evilness like wouldn't really exist within the kids. Like Jack wouldn't have the power that he had.
So, I think, Victor, I really appreciate that you keep bringing us back to Simon, though, because I think this is a question, I think this kind of goes back also to what Espy was saying. It's like, okay, so, yeah, Simon was there, and he had all this potential for peace and for building a society, but he couldn't do it. In fact, what ends up happening to Simon, right? Not just he dies, but he's like the first victim. He's like the first, like, legit, you know, the Litlums that went missing, like, okay, nobody went out and murdered them. They just fell into the ocean or fell into a hole or something. But Simon was straight up murdered, right? So the fact that Simon was the hope for peace and yet he was the victim, William Golding made him the victim of that first murder on the island. Well, was it a coincidence? I think this is what I'm trying to ask is like, obviously that was intentional, right? So what? Yeah.
I forgot what coincidence.
But it's not a coincidence. It's very intentional on his part. So what's he telling us?
I think that he's telling us that, like, I don't know, we, like, sometimes, like, fear takes over, like, I kind of disagree with Victor that, like, even if Simon would have made a society, I think there's still fear because, like, they're alone, and there's still fear because Jack is really intimidating, and he would still become a savage, so even if there is someone who can build a society, there's still that fear that what if it falls, or what if this happens, so, like, you know.
I wish you could. You could if you want to stay late. Can we just get another round of appreciation? You guys, this was an amazing session. Really, really nice job. Before you pack up, tomorrow, I'm going to take us into our very last little piece of work for Lord of the Flies. We're going to look at our year-long paper paragraph about identity from Lord of the Flies. In order to do that, you're going to need to have your Lord of the Flies quote log, because we're going to do the organizers at the very back of that packet. That's going to take us into preparing the year-long paper for a day or two next week, and then I'm going to send you into the weekend tomorrow with that paragraph assignment. Turn to someone in the class that you've appreciated, make eye contact with them really quickly, say thank you, have a lovely afternoon. Drop off your preparation and your quarter sheets on the way out the door.
Yes, that was really great.
question. But thank you for that question, because that was like my biggest answer, like best answer.
You can dedicate your time.